Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't made a video in quite a while, I do apologize, but today I thought I would bring you guys a pretty fun DIY. So what this project today is going to be is a rice-filled microwavable heating pack. The one I'm going to be showing you today is this one. This rice pack has its own pouch. The pouch is kind of like a envelope pillowcase style pouch. So this little pouch full of rice goes inside of this pocket right here. And what's good about this is that over the time of using this, it will get dirty because you're microwaving it and you're putting it on your body. So you kind of want to have something you can wash. But now I'm going to show you what you'll need to complete this project. For the first fabric you're cutting, I would suggest doing about 7 inches wide by 19 inches long. For the second one, I would suggest doing about 10 inches wide by anywhere between 21 inches long to 24 inches long. Depends on how snug or how loose you want the pillowcase. I think I'm going to do about 19 or 20 inches. So let me cut that fabric and I'll be right back. So now that I've cut the smaller piece, I'm going to cut this piece down just a little bit, not too much. I'm going to take it from 23 inches to about 21. It may seem like a really big difference between the sizing, however you want to have a bigger outer pouch to begin with, and also you want to have enough space to have a decent amount of seam allowance. Alrighty, so now that we have this, we can get started on sewing. So the first thing you want to do is flip your fabric with the right sides facing each other. Take your fabric, flip it so the right sides are now facing each other. So now, to pin your fabric, what I suggest doing is taking your pin and placing it perpendicular to the way that your fabric is going. So your fabric is facing in this direction, so perpendicular to the way it's going. So I'm going to pin these two sides, and I'll be right back. So now that all the fabric is pinned, we can begin to sew. Also, before we begin sewing, turn your stitch from a straight stitch to a zigzag stitch, and also change the length and the width of the stitch to provide more sturdiness. So you're going to want to start sewing from the very top of the fabric and give yourself about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Lower the foot on your machine and begin to sew. After you sew a little bit, press the reverse button on your machine and sew backwards. What this does is lock the thread into place so that it does not unravel while you're using it. After you do that for a little while, continue on sewing down the length of your fabric. So you get close to the end of your fabric, continue to sew down and then back stitch again just like you did in the beginning. Sew down, and when you get close to the end, press the reverse button and sew backwards, and then sew forwards, going off of your fabric. Lift up your foot, take your scissors, and cut the thread. Now that we've done that to one side of the fabric, turn your fabric over and do the exact same thing to this side. Okay, so now we have our pouch. All you have to do is take the end that has not been sewn, open it up, and flip it right side out. Now you can obviously sew up this end and stop right there. However, that's not where we're going to stop. We're going to add the rice in, sew this up, and then start with our other pouch. So now we're going to add our rice and our smell goods to the bag. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is take your bag of rice and cut it open. Empty the contents of your bag of rice into the plastic bag. Now take the essential oils of your choice and we're going to place them inside of the bag with the rice. So I'm going to start with the lavender oil, and I'm going to drop about 4 drops of this inside of this bag. And now I'm going to take the tea tree oil and drop about 1 to 2 drops of this inside of the bag with the rice. So now take your rice and you can put your hands directly inside, or you can close the bag up and kind of smush it around. You want to mix together all of the rice and the essential oils. So now take your cup or whatever you're going to use to put the rice inside of the bag. Get a big full cup of rice. Now take your empty rice pouch, open it up, and fill it up with the rice. Continue to do that until all of the rice is in the rice pouch. Alright, so now we have all of our rice inside of our pouch. It's about 2 pounds of rice here. You want to make sure when we do this next part, you keep all the rice at the bottom of your pouch like this. Please, because you don't want rice falling out everywhere. This end is not closed, okay? Now we're going to close this end. We're going to top stitch this. Take your fabric, push the corners inward like this, the little envelope, and then fold each edge inward. So what this does is kind of create cleaner edges so that when you sew it, you see something that looks like this. So once you do this, you're going to pin this edge down all the way across it, and we're going to sew. So now that all the edges are pinned, make sure all your rice is sitting off to the side that you're not sewing, off to the side of the sewing machine. You're going to start at the top of the sewing machine again with about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of seam allowance, whatever you want to do, but I'm going to do 1/4 inch. And this time you're going to do a straight stitch, not a zigzag stitch. So set your machine accordingly and begin to sew. So now you have your microwavable heating pack, but we're not going to stop here. We're going to make a little case for our little friend here. Take the larger piece of fabric, lay it underneath your heating pack, and make sure you do not place it in the middle. If you want your envelope pillowcase to evenly be in the middle, then you can lay your heating pack in the middle. But if you want it to be asymmetrical, move your heating pack a little bit in either direction. That way, it's going to give you a more asymmetrical look. Once you figure out where you want your envelope opening to lay, you're going to take one edge, fold it over itself, and pin it. And then do the same thing with this edge. Fold it over, pin it, and we're going to sew along this. It's up to you and however much excess fabric you can fold over, but you have to make sure that these two pieces, once you do it, touch each other. You don't want to fold over too much and have them not meet. Turn your fabric back over, and you're going to top stitch down each edge. And just the top layer, don't top stitch all the way through, just the top layer. So now that we have both edges sewn, what we're going to do is open our fabric up, place our pouch back on it, fold it, and place it where you want the envelope opening to be. So now, take your pins, pin the top 2 layers together so that they will be where you want them to be when you sew it. And you really only need to pin it at the very top and at the very bottom. So now take your little pouchy out. Now that you have removed the pouch, flip your fabric inside out. Again, make sure these flaps lay where you want them to lay. So right now, if I were to sew this, the opening would be at the very top of the pillowcase. So what I will do is turn the fabric. Now when I sew it, the pouch will be right around here when I flip it back inside out. Now what you're going to do is just sew along the raw edges. For this, I'm going to do about 1 inch of seam allowance on each side. What this will do is take my fabric in about this much, leaving a nice comfortable little cozy pouch for this to go inside of. The reason I made this fabric so wide is because sometimes it's a little hard to tell just how big you want the pouch to be. You can have the pouch be this big or you can have it a lot smaller, but you don't want to have less fabric than you need. You want to have more so that we can cut back and cut back and cut back. When you get to the flap section, lift your foot up and make sure that it is sitting directly on top of the flap so that it doesn't sew it with the flap back like that. I would also suggest doing a back stitch over the flap to make sure that it stays in place. And now that you've sewn this side down, take your pouch one more time, place it in the middle, and check if you need to take it in anymore. But I'm going to take this side in maybe about almost 2 inches so that it's a little more snug. Now what I'm going to do is cut off the excess fabric and then flip it back inside out. Now that you flipped it inside out, you have a really cool heating pouch for your microwavable heating pad. All you have left to do is place it inside. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of DIY. I love making stuff like this, and I've become quite fond of sewing, so I thought I would share a DIY sewing project with you all. So go ahead and pop your microwavable heating pouch in the microwave and relax. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, peace.